Asimbonangu Mandela jina lape kona lape hleli kona.
Well, like we told you earlier, the world bid farewell to the late Nelson Mandela as he was laid to rest earlier today. Of course, our team is in South Africa, and we now join Janet Bogwa for an extensive coverage of Mandela's funeral. Janet.
That's right, Hussein. We're coming to you live from the Nelson Mandela Museum in Kunu, and it's overlooking the very location where Nelson Mandela's funeral service and subsequent burial took place earlier on today. Now, Nelson Mandela, the former president of South Africa, may be gone, but he certainly will not be forgotten anytime soon, his legacy having been built over the last few decades, reverberating the world over, a testament to the legacy that this man has left behind. It's here in Kunu where Nelson Mandela said he spent the happiest days of his childhood. It was only fitting that he was then brought back here to be laid to rest, and also custom allows that he be brought back here. He is of royalty. His grandfather was a Tembu king, his father a revered advisor as well to the Tembu clan, and so really for him to be brought back here is significant in so many ways. The funeral service was one of the most magnificent one that has been witnessed in South Africa, full military honors and colorful in every way possible. Jackie Maribe captures the funeral service as it was.
6 a.m. at the Mandela family farm in Kunu. And the final journey for the late Nelson Mandela would begin, marking the end of 10 days of national mourning. The final viewing of the body, a short service, would see this procession, casket draped in the national flag atop a gun carriage, lead a family and friends in mourning to the marquee where his funeral service would take place. The solemn service saw heads of state Jakaya Kikwete from Tanzania, Dr. Joyce Banda from Malawi, Jacob Zuma from South Africa, his close friend Dr. Ahmed Kathrada, and Ethiopian Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn break down in emotion as they eulogized Mandela and paid their tributes.
Good for has been achieved yet. It is foolhardy also to assume that all the ills of the former apartheid system will be corrected in these 19 years. Nonetheless, a lot has been achieved, although much more has to be done.
I found myself in a situation where I had to work with those same people that had prevented me from becoming president of my country. I had to forgive, but I had to forgive without any effort because my Madiba had prepared me.
What is it about this man that elicits this outpouring of sincere emotions? The answer is that when people see goodness in a person, they respond by reflecting goodness back at that person.
But in a larger sense, his life also was a life of the very party that created and shaped him, and one that Madiba's struggle went to sustain, and whose unparalleled dedication to the cause of the liberation of Africa will be remembered by posterity, the ANC.
Today, mingled with our grief, is the enormous pride that one of our own has during his lifetime, and now in your death, united the people of South Africa and the entire world on a scale never before experienced in history. I have lost a brother. My life is in a void, and I don't know who to turn to.
Two of his grandchildren paid their tributes on behalf of the family. Ndaba Mandela read the obituary as Nandi Mandela read the children and grandchildren's joint tribute.
Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela was inaugurated as president of a democratic South Africa on 10th May 1994. This world icon worked tirelessly, even after the achievement of democracy in South Africa, to continue improving lives. Even as he retired from politics, his attention shifted to social issues, such as HIV and AIDS, and the well-being of the nation's children.
We shall miss you, Tatomkhulu. We shall miss your stern voice when you were not pleased with our behavior. We shall miss your voice as you told us stories of your childhood. We shall miss your laughter.
The 4-hour service would end in a private burial back at his home at the Mandela family farm, where only his family members and a few invited dignitaries were present. And at 20 minutes to 1 p.m., his body was lowered to the ground. Now, one needed not be told once this flame went out earlier today, signifying that indeed Nelson Mandela's journey had come to the end as he was laid to rest. Now, a great tree has fallen and the sun has set on a world icon. These are just some of the various ways used to describe the feeling here today in his home village. But the question remains, what's next for the South African nation and her people with the absence of a man whose struggle, ideals and lessons made him a legacy that changed the world? Jackie Maribe, Sunday Live in Kunu, Eastern Cape, South Africa.
Now, as family, friends and world leaders paid tribute to Nelson Mandela earlier today, there were also certain moments of the funeral service that stood out. It was really as much a celebration as it was a send-off. Take a look. As the flames of 95 candles symbolizing his age flickered in the background, they cast a soft glow on tearful mourners who gathered for Nelson Mandela's state funeral on Sunday in his village to say goodbye, marking the end of an era the world over. As the choir sang the national anthem, a giant picture of Mandela smiled down on mourners. About 4,500 people gathered in the tent, including Mandela's widow, Graça Machel, who occasionally dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief. It's been 10 intense days since the passing of Nelson Mandela from his ex-wife, and one could tell that it's taken a toll on her. Among those who graced the funeral service were talk show host Oprah Winfrey, Prince Charles, and business mogul Sir Richard Branson. Desmond Tutu was also among the mourners. Zolani Mkiva was here too, doing a jig for the old man. In his praise song, Mkiva, who was dressed in black with leopard skin, also acknowledged Mandela. Mkiva was Mandela's praise singer since the icon's release from prison in 1990. In a surprise move, the founding president of Zambia, Kenneth Kaunda, opted to run onto the stage, leaving behind the walking stick that the 89-year-old is often seen with. He too gave a personal tribute to Mandela, remembering him as a man who loved irrespective of race or religion.
Madiba showed us the way. Whether you're white, black, yellow or brown, you're all God's children.
Mourners across the country were able to capture the proceedings on large screens erected in various places across the country, which elicited a plethora of emotions for South Africans, many of whom consider Mandela their emancipator from the shackles of the oppressive apartheid regime. He became the first. In keeping with tradition, Mandela was laid to rest in the afternoon when the sun is at its highest. And with this, a 21-gun salute, Nelson Mandela lay to rest in the place he wanted to be buried, this marking the final chapters of 10 days of national mourning for a man whose fame transcended borders. And so notably, within those moments was Zolani Mkiva, the praise singer who came onto the podium just before President Jacob Zuma paid his tribute to Nelson Mandela. So who exactly is he, and why was that included in the funeral service? Joining me right now is Bantu Yako. He's a businessman, but also passionate about Xhosa culture. Just to shed some more light on that, Bantu, thank you so much for talking to us. Why was Zolani Mkiva so significant to today's funeral service?
Zolani Mkiva is a very prominent praise singer in South Africa, as he's revered as Nelson Mandela's praise singer. And the significance was that he was welcoming a king. What usually happens when a king walks in or a king walks out, a praise singer comes along.
Okay, Nelson Mandela's praise singer. Only Nelson Mandela's praise singer?
He does praise for other people, but he was especially for Nelson Mandela.
Okay. So what was he saying?
It's basically part of that is part of his names from this clan, because king gets given names throughout his tenure. But what it is also all his clan names and the things that he's done well, and if he's sown crop and everything, they talk about those crops. But the most significant thing is that there at the end, where he has a roar at the end. It's like a lion's roar saying goodbye to him.
Okay. And so really symbolizing Nelson Mandela as this great man, equalizing him to a lion. Okay, and so does he usually now, was he speaking before President Jacob Zuma at the FNB Memorial? We saw him do the same thing. Is it simply part of the send-off of Madiba? Will we be seeing more of him?
You definitely will be seeing more of him, but not at Madiba, for Madiba. You will be seeing him praising other people, but only the family can come in and say, please praise Madiba, or whatever, whoever comes in after him.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Bantu. Many thanks for that. So obviously that was something that a lot of people were talking about, particularly you back home, wondering what it was that he was saying. So very interesting customs there today. And so really Nelson Mandela's death and his burial now really marks the end of an era, a man who had so much to hate, but instead chose to love. And here at the Nelson Mandela Museum, he has been immortalized in so many ways. His words, his character, even behind me, a little bit about his resilience here. There are few misfortunes in the world that you cannot turn into a personal triumph if you have the iron will and the necessary skill. He had so many inspirational words that he constantly spoke to men, women, children of all races and gender and color, and that's what made him stand out. And right here in front of me, the flame that began burning the very night that Nelson Mandela was pronounced dead has now officially gone off, as if saying it is now the end. And so that's what we have from you here in Qunu, where Nelson Mandela made his final journey. He has now been laid to rest, but no doubt his legacy will continue to live on for many, many years to come. Hussein.
Oh, thanks, Janet. Indeed, Ted Bogo coming to us live from South Africa, where Nelson Mandela's funeral was held today.